time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a Monday following a beautiful day in the Palmetto State. Hope you enjoyed it. Glad you have joined us here on Sports Talk. We're going to add to your pleasure with some great stuff tonight. South Carolina picks up a commitment today from Ja'Kai Moore. Big recruiting win for the Gamecocks, beating Penn State primarily. There were other big ones in there as well. Had an offer from Clemson, Ohio State, and others. So that's a critical recruiting victory for Will Muschamp. It gets signing week off on the right foot for him. We'll talk more about that coming up. His coach will join us at the bottom of this hour to tell us more about what he thinks will be an excellent left tackle for South Carolina. And interesting, in his comments after making his commitment, explaining why he chose South Carolina, Moore said that in the recruiting process, he was told South Carolina's losing 4 of its offensive linemen. You go back and look, and of course, they've got the 3 true seniors if you count Blake Camper as a part-time starter, which leads me to believe that the coaching staff might be thinking that Donnell Stanley is not going to return, unless they're just using that as recruiting talk, and we know how that goes when you're trying to win the recruiting battle. You lay out some numbers that may or may not turn out to be the case, but it is something to think about here as the bowl practices begin at South Carolina and they approach the bowl game.
I don't know if I'm not trying to look inside Donnell Stanley's head, but to get him back for the 6th year, although that's, again, might be a year where he could gain some more NFL draft talk or even just maybe go up a couple of spots. I really don't know if I want to come back for a 6th year in school. If I'm him, I want to start my professional career, or even if it doesn't work out professionally for him, whatever is beyond that. I don't know what there is to gain for him coming back for a 6th year of school.
Well, the only thing you can gain is versatility, and the fact that this will be his 2nd straight year at the center position, which is becoming, in my mind, a little bit more important than people thought, especially when you have the ability to call line shifts during the game.
You have 2 big, great tackles now, though, when you think about if you get Moore in, you get Dylan Wanham. I mean, I'll put one at left tackle, one at right tackle, whatever you want to do. That really shores that up. You got Hutcherson at the 1 guard and a couple of other guys you can look at to be the other side guard, and obviously the center position with Hank Manos. That's a position that's been completely overhauled now by Will Muschamp.
I think it's starting to come together. The other, and we'll have a detailed recruiting report for you coming up in the normal time period, but the other 2 major items of the day as we hit signing week, Will Putnam, still no decision from him. I talked with his coach just moments ago. Told me earlier today it did not look like anything would come down today. It hasn't, and nothing's coming down tonight. And so the wait continues. This goes back to last week when it looked like it was moving towards Clemson, and then Florida State got in there late with him for a visit late in the week, and everything's been sort of put on standby now. Auburn has also been in the mix, so this one remains up in the air. And then the other most significant news was that last night or over the weekend, Crouch, the linebacker from Charlotte, running back linebacker from Charlotte, took a visit to Tennessee, something that nobody saw coming unless maybe you were some Tennessee people. And it appeared on his Instagram account late Saturday night. We were one of the first ones to pick up on it and tweet that out, that he was at Tennessee. He put a little video out on his Instagram account showing that he was there. Tennessee had some other major targets in for official visits, but Quavaris Crouch was at Tennessee over the weekend. And boy, that put the 2 fan bases into a tizzy. The Clemson fan base and the Clemson fan websites are besides themselves with the possibility of Clemson getting beat by Tennessee for this kid, because it appeared he was trending towards Clemson in the minds of many. And now in the minds of many, he is trending towards Tennessee, which would be a huge recruiting victory for Tennessee if they can pull that off. So it remains to be seen. Things are very fluid in these final hours leading up to signing day. And the thing with Crouch is he might not even sign on Wednesday. He's not announcing until January 5th. Whether or not he puts pen to paper on Saturday is anybody's guess. And still, who he will sign with remains anybody's guess.
So definitively, has he said that he's a linebacker, no longer a running back? Is that what we're—
The only time I've talked to him in recruiting, he told me it was strictly linebacker for him. He wasn't interested in taking the abuse of a running back. He's looking at a long NFL career. He sees it more at linebacker. And I'm not the only one he has told that to.
Better longevity at linebacker.
Yeah, I would say so. So that's where we stand right now as far as the top items. Nothing else has occurred from a recruiting standpoint today. Everything else is sort of on standby for those who are, well, I will say this, Jimmy Frisch, and talked with him today or text with him. He had a great visit to Nebraska. It's Clemson or Nebraska for him. He's got strong feelings towards both. Now, here's a case where Clemson was late to the party. Nebraska's been on him much longer and much harder. But he loves the idea of being close to home. He loves Clemson. He's getting a lot of Clemson in his ears from the fans and people at his school. Same thing with Cooper Dawson. Cooper Dawson tells us he has made his decision, and he has told the school. And, again, it's a case where Clemson is one of them, but they kind of toyed with him with a gray shirt offer. And then I think when they saw they were going to miss on some people, they took that and changed it into a regular offer. Is that enough to persuade him to come? Or were the other schools who've been recruiting him harder and longer, do they have more of his heart than Clemson does now?
Yeah, that's the one thing. If you could pick at something from Clemson's perspective and where they've, I guess, kind of fallen short, at least initially with this class, is the fact that they have not been in on a lot of the linemen or not gotten a lot of the linemen that they've targeted. That's the one position where it does seem like they're slacking or lacking a bit, and they're having to kind of, at the 11th hour, try to pull some of these last-ditch efforts in here now because they're going to be very thin. I mean, even though you got Jackson Carman, who's rising to the occasion with the graduation of Mitch Hyatt, you're going to have some reps that are going to need to be taken from some of these guys in the underclass.
Yeah. Again, if you look at some of the responses on the websites, I mean, they're going ballistic over the Clemson offensive line situation. They foresee a disaster in this class with offensive linemen, especially if they don't get Putnam. And, now they've gone in on Darius Washington, who they're late to the party with on him as well, a player that South Carolina's been recruiting and trying to turn from Mississippi State, who's not going to be signing early. And there could be some other offensive linemen to pop up as the weeks move on and we go into the February signing period time frame for some of these guys. So plenty to talk about in recruiting. 800-956-7266 is the number. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com, on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Really enjoyed the Touchstone Energy Bowl and the week down there. And also the Shrine Bowl, kissing your sister with a tie.
Not good.
On Saturday. Clemson basketball won a nice one over Radford.
Big win for Clemson. They did it without Marquise Reed. First time they won without him. Get some real confidence back. They get to play Charleston Southern Tuesday, and then the basket brawl Saturday with South Carolina. The Gamecocks back on the floor this week as well. They get themselves a very, very tough matchup with number 5 Virginia. Just continues that string of tough play. Furman still undefeated, 12-0. They beat UNC Wilmington over the weekend, which sets up a chance to continue an undefeated slate in non-con by playing at LSU on Friday. College of Charleston with a big win over VCU as well this weekend as well.
They have won at VCU and they have won at Memphis.
Very big.
College of Charleston.
Yeah.
And the voters who do the basketball poll voting, so impressed by Furman's win, they dropped him in the AP poll.
So stupid.
But the College of Charleston, I saw a lot of that basketball game, especially the final 10 minutes. And as you know, it's always packed at VCU. That is the sport on campus. Yes. And those guys weathered the storm through all of that. They showed me that they're going to be in it.
Also, Gamecock football on the practice field for the first time today since their victory over Akron, getting ready for bowl practice against Virginia. Clemson back on the practice field today. They'll practice through Thursday before they take their break for Christmas and then head down to Dallas. And
media sessions tomorrow at Clemson and at USC. We'll have both of those covered for you on the program. And the Panthers are playing tonight at home against the Saints. Oof, so much going on. We'll dive into it all when we come back.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We continue here. Corn, I had a tweet over the weekend that
I'm sorry.
Did
they get some medicine for that?
1,014 likes, 146 tweets, and about an 86,000 impression rate. That's a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was literally just reporting something that happened at halftime at a Clemson basketball game. I don't need to tell you about the disdain that folks here in our state have for the state of Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of just angst, I would say. A young man was interviewed. They were doing some sort of little contest on the floor at halftime, and the young man was asked what he wanted to be when he grew up. His response was an Ohio State football player.
Oh,
which got raucous boos from the Clemson faithful at Little John Coliseum.
Not well received.
Not well received at all. And it literally just...
Like, how young was this youngster?
He was a pudgy little 10-year-old white dude, just guy who looked like probably could be a lineman recruit.
Probably didn't like the comment about being pudgy.
He's got like little pudgy cheeks, man.
Yeah.
I'm about to say that was a little harsh from the Clemson
People
crew.
Jumped all over it, huh?
Oh, it was all over the place. People were going back and forth about Clemson and Ohio. There was some Trump stuff in there. I'm like, guys, this was kind of funny. Like, come on,
chill out.
Gosh.
Well, we had a great time at the beach last week. Touchstone Energy Bowl was terrific. Congratulations to everybody involved. Thank you to Touchstone Energy and the folks all involved with putting the game on. Coastal Carolina stepping up and helping out when they had to move the game. Coach Keith Richardson, Coach Scott Early, who do all the behind-the-scenes work in putting this thing together. The South won it 13-10. Obviously, it was a low-scoring game, had some turnovers in the fourth quarter. Defenses were pretty good, but I tell you what, in that game, there were two of the best running backs you will find in South Carolina, and they put on a show. Joe Irvin from South Point on 12 carries had 102 yards, averaged 8.5 yards per carry. Tion Evans on 21 carries at Hartsville, 142 yards, averaged about 7 yards a carry. These two guys you'll hear more from later in the years to come. Irvin is headed to Kansas State as things stand now. Evans is probably headed to a junior college for a couple of years, but he'll resurface somewhere, I'm sure. They were very, very good. And, of course, a number of good defensive players as well. Jacob Johanning had 7 tackles for the North team. He was very, very good. And Michael Mason, I think he's from West Florence, I want to say, 7 tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss. He was very, very good. I think he was one of the MVPs. And then the Shrine Bowl, South Carolina jumped out to the early lead. North Carolina came back, took a 10-7 lead. South Carolina ties it up, and they finish 10-10 up in Spartanburg. And so it doesn't break the losing streak, but at least it doesn't extend the losing streak for the Sandlappers.
I have a question about both. I mean, we've seen these games go either way. And as far as, we've seen offensive games, we've seen defensive games. I'm wondering if the fact that we didn't see a lot of offense had to do with just the fact that the way the year went, just the arduous nature of the year. I know that one of the games is usually played on this week and one was pushed back for a week, but I'm wondering if just the arduous nature of this year led to not a disinterest, but just maybe a little bit more fatigue than usual.
I don't know. I mean, not that many players had to come right off the field from state championship weekend to go play in these games. I think in the case of both teams, the weather forced them inside quite a bit, or in the case of the Touchstone Energy Bowl, they did practice outside in the cold and the wet, but that had to slow you down as far as your process is concerned. They did practice inside on Friday. They had to go to Coastal Carolina and practice some. Things were not in disarray whatsoever because everybody held it together and had a plan, but there were a lot of moving parts because everything got moved back. And, let's hope next year we don't have the weather issues and everything can stay on track. Keep this in mind. High school football season in South Carolina this year kicked off on August 17th.
That is correct.
And the last high school game was played on December 15th in terms of the All-Star games. In Georgia, one of the teams in Georgia, and we're following one of their players, Jamie Robinson, they're still playing. They won a state championship, and now they're playing in this Geico Classic where they're taking state champions from certain states and pairing them up in a game. So Leesburg, Georgia, which won a state championship last week, is playing another game. They're still practicing. They're playing another game on ESPNU this Saturday against St. Francis of Baltimore.
That's too long.
Yeah, sometimes your body needs some rest from all that hitting.
So we're probably talking about high school kids. I don't know their record off the top of my head, but they went all the way and won a state championship. So they probably played 15, 16 games.
That's correct.
And now they're going to tack on another game. That's about 17 games you're playing in high school football. That's a bunch.
Yeah, you were talking about defenses in this all-star game. I think probably coaches are starting to figure out that years ago when they started opening up the offense, they took their best athletes and put them on offense. Now with all the rules leaning toward offense, you know what? Coaches are scratching their head. And you know what? We better put some of our better athletes on defense because right now, the way the rules are, we can't stop anybody anyway. So we got to have some athletes who can really cover downfield.
You know who the leading rusher was for the Sandlappers Saturday? Zach Pickens.
Yeah.
7 carries, 37 yards, 5.3 yards per carry. Mr. Football in South Carolina. I don't think there was any question going into the voting or the committee looking over the finalists. When you looked at that panel, or you looked at the finalists, not to take anything away from any of them because they're all good players and good people. They wouldn't have been on the finalist list. But Pickens stood out. I mean, he's a great player. He does everything in school that you're supposed to do. He's very involved in community events and volunteering and things. We're going to hear from his coach a little bit later on, his comments about him, not just as a football player, but as a person.
You can make an argument, one of the best two-way players this state has seen in a long, long time.
I think probably the key is, and probably there's nowhere to measure this and to go back through the years, when is the last time you've seen, just because of the nature of the position, a defensive lineman lead the team in tackles? I mean, that's
very athletic.
That's crazy.
Well, Pickens had 7 tackles and he broke up a pass. So on the day, he led the team in rushing and he tied for second in tackles. Have we ever had a player in the Shrine Bowl lead his team in rushing and also lead his team in tackles or come close? I doubt it.
Well, see, sometimes really when he carries the ball, he gains yards because the defensive players are making a business decision and don't want to get in front of him.
By the way, you mentioned guys making business decisions. A business decision made by a former South Carolina coach brings him back to our area as the quarterback coach of NC State. Kurt Roper is now NC State's quarterback coach. It triggers me to say that. And
third school in 3 years.
He was at Colorado last year. This is more his footprint. I think the Colorado job was more just this is a job to have a job. I don't know.
His brother still down the road at Duke?
Yeah, puts him back within 20 miles of his brother. So family's got to be happy about that. All right, 800-956-7266 is the phone number. Let's go to Glenn. What a way to start the week. Glenn in North Charleston. I'm glad you remembered us tonight, sir. How are you?
I always want to wish you all Merry Christmas. That's all.
Yes.
That's all.
It's over.
Oh, yeah, that too.
It's over.
Well,
too late.
We only got 8 days of Christmas, but true love gave to me. So, but anyway, I can't wait for Virginia to get SWAC close. Even without Debo Samuel, I have faith in the offense more than the defense, but I'm pretty sure our defense is scrappy. We got some good players returning. So we're going to give them a game. They're going to show why we called the Fighting Gamecocks.
You're not worried about motivation in the game, Glenn?
Nah, man. I mean, they was motivated. When they played that Akron game last time, even the defense came out to play. So when they don't need it, they know what to do when they get their assignments. I mean, I got faith that the defense is going to come out and play, and they're going to win.
Yeah, they're going to be helped by having Bryson Allen Williams back. Too bad DJ Wanham's not going to be available, but maybe the flip of that is they can get another year back for him. That would be big. If they could get that, and get the years back for some of these defense, that doesn't mean he'll stay.
That's the thing. Right. I don't know if he'll stay for that extra year.
But they can get that done and get these defensive backs who are hurt another year, like that Harvey back for another year.
eBay and Harvey back, I think, is more important than getting a year back for Wanham.
All right, we'll continue. 800-956-7266.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. I don't know if you saw this, Corn. The war of words continuing with Florida and UCF, which we'll get into a little bit later on between these two. Things aren't looking good between those two because of what's going on with that whole situation, and UCF wanting a home and home, and Florida wants a 2-for-1. We'll talk about that a little later on in the program.
UCF should be careful about who it picks a fight with.
Dude, they need to know who the hell they are.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get into it more later. I'm very steamed about this.
A big day for South Carolina. The Gamecocks win a recruiting battle head up with Penn State for Ja'Kai Moore, big offensive lineman, 6'6", roughly 300 pounds, depending on a potato chip here or there. Very talented athlete, also a very good basketball player. His coach, Brud Bignell, joins us here on Sports Talk, and we thank him for taking a couple of minutes to share some thoughts on his fine offensive lineman. Coach, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
We're terrific. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations on getting another one committed. What kind of player is South Carolina getting?
I think they're getting a very special talent, a kid that loves playing the game of football and definitely has his best football still ahead of him.
Technically speaking, physically speaking, what stands out about him in your eyes?
He's got great length. He's got the arm length that everybody's looking for in an offensive lineman these days. He's got a great motor, likes playing to the whistle, has the ability to be a very physical football player. And, like you had mentioned before, you can just tell his athleticism by the way he plays basketball. He's a pretty special offensive lineman.
This appears to be a case where building a relationship early and staying with it paid off for South Carolina. He camped at USC, took his official back in April, made some unofficial visits. Muschamp and Wolford got after him really hard and let him know that they needed him and there's a spot for him. That relationship kind of won out here at the end for him when he was making that decision?
I think so. I think, Coach Wolford started in January, coming by school and coming by once a week. And Coach Muschamp made a visit to our school last January. And I think that set the tone for what was to come. And, they did a great job of not only recruiting Ja'Kai, but recruiting his family as well.
Yeah, we were watching the video, Coach, and I don't know if it was you or somebody else who said, but basically spoke about the way that they had been recruiting them, and they looked upon your program very, very highly. Just from the standpoint of where South Carolina was, what stood out about whether it was their pitch, the way they treated him, but what stood out about their particular recruitment of Ja'Kai?
I think that it was a combination of all of the things just falling together the right way. I think there was the personal aspect of it. Certainly he was wowed by the campus and the facilities when he went down to visit there. I think it was pretty special when he went back for a game this fall and he met the quarterback that's coming in from the West Coast and struck up a great relationship with him. And I think that he only helped a great deal in the recruiting. So it was just a lot of different things that just all fell together in the right way for him.
About the player himself, playing basketball and the use of different skills, especially hand placement that linemen have to have, has he elevated himself with the use of his hands by playing a different sport?
Oh, I think so. I think he's he's a competitive kid, and I think he likes the to be in competitive situations. I think that he's got great hand to eye coordination. He's got real soft hands. He handles everything that they feed him in the post, and I think that again that kind of athleticism carrying over to an offensive lineman is something you don't see very often.
Visiting with Coach Brud Bignell from Patriot High in Nokesville, Virginia. His standout offensive lineman, Ja'Kai Moore, picking South Carolina. So I'm watching the feed as well, and I didn't know which one he was going to pick. I mean, I had a feeling it might be South Carolina considering how long they've been recruiting him and things that he had said, but I didn't know. So I'm watching, and he had a jacket on. He takes the jacket off, and it shows a South Carolina shirt. And so, like so many who follow this, I tweeted out he committed to South Carolina. But at the same time, I'm glancing back down, and I see he takes off the South Carolina shirt, and there's a Penn State shirt on. And I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, I've got to go delete my tweet. And then when I went to go do that, I noticed he's pulling off the Penn State shirt, and he's got another South Carolina shirt on, and he puts the South Carolina cap on. So, I mean, listening to the crowd in attendance there, they were kind of going up and down with him as he was taking off the shirt. So my question to you is, did you know he was going to do that? Who came up with that idea? What'd you think of it?
He's a showman. He's one of those kind of kids that draws a crowd when he's in a room. He's got that special charisma about him. I had no idea that it was going to happen. Apparently, he and his mom came up with that Sunday night, and and I had kind of felt that it was going to be South Carolina. Certainly, the way that the conversations that I had with Coach Wolford over the weekend and everything, and then he pulled the Penn State thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's really fooled everybody. But then went back, and the school, I don't think that they overall, some people have connections at our school, have connections with South Carolina and some with Penn State, and I don't think they're really overwhelmingly pulling for one or another. I just thought that the excitement of the moment and that extra added flair, made it really kind of fun.
Yeah, you made reference to the two big schools in the state there with Virginia and Virginia Tech, I think, because I think you said in the lead-up announcement, you said, we all kind of wanted him to go somewhere, and as far as that goes, I guess my question to you is, was it something, I guess, what did the two big in-state schools there not do, or at least, I guess, how did South Carolina get this guy out of a very fertile recruiting area for both Virginia and Virginia Tech?
I think personalities, Virginia recruited him real hard, and they didn't take no for an answer till the bitter end. I think Tech may have seen the writing on the wall earlier, and I don't know what it was. Ja'Kai never expressed any real, connection with the in-state schools, nor did he say that he definitely wanted to go away to school. But I think that it was kind of the personalities of the people that recruited him that won out. And, and I think Virginia's battling right hard right now to try and build their program back up. And maybe he wasn't quite ready to make that step. He wanted to take something that was a little bit more established. And the opportunity to play in the SEC, I think, was a huge factor in it when all was said and done.
All right, last thing, Coach, got about a minute. How important was that last Friday night visit by Muschamp, or had he already pretty much made up his mind South Carolina was going to be the pick? Did Muschamp had to do some final selling there on that visit on Friday night?
Well, I'm sure he did. I mean, he sat in an uncomfortable bleacher for the entire basketball game. I was pretty impressed with that. Sitting through there and not getting up, moving around. But I don't know. I think that I bet that they felt pretty confident having, the fact that Ja'Kai weathered South Carolina weathered the Penn State big pitch on Thursday night, and that he hadn't committed there. So I'm sure that they felt pretty good going in, that if they just continued on the path, that they'd secure him.
Well, we thank you so much. I guess it's with you going off into retirement, this was the last big timer you're sending off to college.
Yeah, not a bad way to go.
Indeed. We thank you, sir. Congratulations. Happy holidays.
All right. Thank you, too.
Thank you.
My old stomping grounds up there, just outside of Gainesville, Haymarket area up there in Virginia.
Nokesville, Virginia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that towards the coast?
No. It's in the I-95 corridor a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sounds like the Gamecocks have got themselves a winner on the offensive line coming in Ja'Kai Moore. We'll give you more in recruiting coming up after the break. We'll update you on developments today. We'll update you on things to look forward to heading towards signing day on Wednesday. Stay with us here on Sports Talk.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Got a lot to come in our second hour of the program. Also, we'll take some more of your phone calls, 800-956-7266. We got some winning basketball coaches, football coaches, but our focus zeroes in right now on 2 days away from the early signing period beginning here, as we sit less than 48 hours away from when football athletes can start putting pen to paper officially to make their pledges in concrete for the 2019 signing class, Corn.
Until they decide just to skip their freshman year and go right to the NFL.
That doesn't work.
Whatever the case may be.
You can't do that.
All right, so we just heard from the coach of Ja'Kai Moore, big pickup for USC. Let's update you on some things happening today. Cornerback Jamie Robinson, Leesburg, Georgia, will not sign this week. This according to his coach today. In fact, as we mentioned earlier, they have another game on Saturday, so he's been busy with that. They've been practicing. Robinson went to Kentucky over the weekend officially. He's also been officially to USC. Tennessee is also a player, and as this thing drags on, others could become more actively involved. But South Carolina has been on him for a long time, and they will have a good shot with him moving forward. Now, offensive lineman Will Putnam in Tampa, no decision today, according to his coach, who I just exchanged messages with, and he just said basically he's on standby, waiting for the family to tell him, but they've made a decision. He said not sure if he's going to make a decision tomorrow or Wednesday. He said they continue to discuss, so he's having a hard time, obviously, probably between Clemson and Florida State would be my guess. And Clemson looked good for a while. Florida State has come in. And, you know, the thing that Florida State and Tennessee can offer these guys when it comes to competing with Clemson is playing time, immediate opportunity at playing time,
right,
and come in and build something from the ground up instead of stepping into something that's already built and going great. You know, different players look at things different ways, and it's no one formula for winning over a recruit when it comes to the final decision. The situations are different. The things that appeal to the players are different. So you just never know. So that one continues to hang out there. Offensive lineman Jimmy Fritsch of Greenville went to Nebraska over the weekend, said it was awesome. He loved the visit. He's down to Clemson and Nebraska. He'll sign on Wednesday. He said between Clemson and Nebraska, they both have different benefits. Nebraska felt like home, but Clemson is pretty much home. So I'm not sure what to think. Of course, his dad was a player at Purdue, and he's a big guy as well.
Well, you know, Nebraska's got that long Big Ten heritage.
Yeah, really.
Oh, wait.
Offensive lineman, defensive end Cooper Dawson of Hanahan.
You like that one, bro.
Tells us today that he has made his decision, and he has told the school he will be signing Wednesday at 8:30. He did not tell us the decision.
I like when they tell the school. That's a nice courtesy.
Yeah. Clemson, Syracuse, UCF, Virginia, and UCLA were the finalists for him. And we'll find out on Wednesday on that. Let's see here. USC target cornerback Johnny Dixon of Tampa will sign Wednesday at 8 o'clock. USC or Miami feel good about the Gamecocks with him. They've had a long relationship with him. He did take an official visit to Miami a couple of weekends back. But he's made many visits to South Carolina, nearly committed to South Carolina a couple of weekends ago. I'll be very surprised if he doesn't sign with the Gamecocks.
It's always hard when you're trying to recruit at a school that basically backs up to a retirement community. Miami.
Or to the ocean.
Yeah. It's not the ocean.
The ocean is.
You've been to the University of Miami before. It's nowhere near the ocean. Come on.
I've been to the University of Miami once. I think Miami's on the ocean, is it not? Or the Bay?
Miami is. Where the University of Miami is located backs up to a retirement community.
Coral Gables.
Coral Gables.
That's close enough.
That's not close.
Hey, look, Coastal tells their recruits they're on the ocean.
Yeah.
It's only 15 miles away.
Yeah.
Mullins athlete Xavier Legette's, keep an eye on him. Depending on how the pieces fall for USC, if the Gamecocks do miss on some targets, it's possible he could sign with them this week. Will Muschamp likes him as a receiver. He's got the limited space, so they got to wait. You know, they've asked him to wait and enroll in August if he wants to do that, so he would count in the 20 class. If there's space now, Legette said he'd love to sign with the Gamecocks. Said it would make him happy because his family would be able to see him play. Tennessee's been the other major offer for him. He said the family wouldn't get a chance to go to Tennessee as much to see him play. East Carolina's offered, Coastal Carolina. He's taken an official at Coastal. He's a good athlete, played quarterback this season for Mullins. He rushed for 1,826 yards and 19 touchdowns. He passed for 887 yards and 14 touchdowns. So Clemson target, linebacker, Quavaris Crouch of Charlotte, under the guise of darkness and cover and everything else, made an unofficial visit to Tennessee over the weekend, and it only became known because he put a video up on his Instagram. So I guess he wasn't trying to keep it too secret.
Yeah.
And we were one of the first ones to catch that, thanks to actually a tweet that I saw by a Vols fan. It was late Friday night or Saturday night, I think I ran across it. And so that put everybody else, of course, into a tizzy on both the Clemson side and the Tennessee side. So he previously made an official visit to Knoxville. Michigan has been the other contender. See, the thinking was it was Clemson or Michigan, and mostly Clemson. Now it looks like it's Tennessee and Clemson. He may or may not sign this week, but he won't announce. If he does sign, he's not going to announce until the Army All-Star game on January 5th. USC target, running back Eric Gray of Memphis, was one of those official visitors to Tennessee over the weekend. He's not signing till Thursday. His only two officials were USC and Tennessee after he decommitted from Michigan. The feeling among the recruiting experts is Tennessee, where he has visited several times. He's a two-time Mr. Football and a two-time Mr. Football and two-time – what's the other thing?
Legacy?
No. Not a two-time legacy.
Oh.
Two-time Mr. Football and I guess two-time
State
player of the year. Yeah, there was something else he's a two-timer of.
Gatorade?
That's it. Two-time Gatorade Player of the Year.
Yeah, else I can ninja your brain a little bit.
Yeah, it needs a ninja. The Gamecocks going to the wire now with some guys who are committed elsewhere. These include Florida commitment linebacker Tyron Hopper of Roswell, Georgia. Auburn commitment receiver Jay Sean Sheffield, St. Simons Island, Georgia. Indiana commitment offensive lineman Matthew Bedford of Memphis. Have nothing new to add on any of those three. Nobody's talking. I would say Hopper's coach told us at the end of last week, he kind of left the door open for a Gamecock possible flip there. Sheffield don't know, and Bedford has not been available. Neither has his coach. So I don't know what is happening with any of those guys. It does not look like they'll turn cornerback Jaden Hill of Madison, Alabama from his Florida commitment. He still looks strong there. So now South Carolina, of course, cornerback Chris Steele of Bellflower, California. He plans to sign this week, but announce on January 5th. USC, Florida, Oregon, Oklahoma, Southern Cal. I don't know anything. Really, I don't know anything inside on this. I'm just sort of kind of guessing, hedging my bet. I'm not going to be shocked if he picks the Gamecocks, to be honest with you. You got Ryan Helinski, who's a close friend, working with him.
What would would be your second pick on that?
Florida.
Okay.
I think it's South Carolina or Florida, probably. The other thing is, just for some strange reason, he never tweeted out a picture of the in-home visit with the Gamecocks.
I was curious.
He did that with every other staff that came in. I don't know if that was an oversight or just
maybe the
subliminal message.
Maybe the Gamecocks didn't want one. Although
it was no secret.
They've had other
his batteries might have died.
On the defensive line, Clemson hoping for good news Wednesday and expected to get it from Tyler Davis of Apopka, Florida. He'll sign with either Clemson or Florida State. Clemson running back target DJ Williams, probably not going to get him. He went to Georgia for his last official over the weekend, so they're probably not going to be in the mix for him. Defensive end Darius Juju Williams of Hemingway was offered by Colorado State. Offensive lineman Nigel Jenkins of Southside Christian offered by Urbana of Ohio. South Point running back Joe Irvin was offered by ECU. Of course, he's been committed to Kansas State. And 2021 defensive lineman Peyton Page of Greensboro, North Carolina, made an unofficial to Clemson on Saturday. USC offered 2022 defensive lineman Alton Tarber, Deerfield Beach, Florida. And Clemson USC in the top 7 with linebacker Kevin Swint, Carrollton, Georgia, 2020 linebacker. Florida, LSU, Wisconsin, Ohio State, and Boston College. The others, and the recruiting continues through the night. Be right back.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a very busy Monday, a busy week here on Sports Talk. Of course, give me a week that's not busy here on Sports Talk, the way the sports calendar has evolved over the years. There is no break. This week we go deep into recruiting, of course, with signing day coming up on Wednesday. And, of course, the bowl practice is now really starting to heat up. South Carolina getting out there today. We'll hear from Will Muschamp tomorrow. Clemson out practicing today, and tomorrow the Tigers will have a media day for their players in the morning time. And then a Wednesday, Dabo Swinney will have a press conference related to signing day, and I'm sure he'll talk some about bowl practice. And also Wednesday, Will Muschamp will have a press conference related to signing day. We'll have all that covered for you here on Sports Talk. Plus, there's basketball galore. Clemson, Charleston Southern tomorrow night. Wednesday night, South Carolina and Virginia, a chance here this week, guys, for South Carolina, which I think has made some strides now. I was very impressed with their performance in the loss at Michigan. They've got a chance this week with Virginia and Clemson back-to-back at home to kind of really show where they will be going into SEC play come January.
Well, that still, you got to understand that on the perimeter, especially on the wing, their best defensive player is still out, and that's Mania.
Mm-hmm.
But, just like Brad Brunell said, sometimes you just have to deal with what the hand you're dealt, and he's had to deal with injuries there at Clemson, so they haven't had a full deck as well.
It's interesting looking at just where they sit, and something that Frank said, and you were there too, Korn, the fact that they sit in a position where this is a developmental year for them. They need to get their freshmen and other players around them who haven't had as much experience as, say, the Kotsars, the Gravitz, and the Silvas. They need to get them up to speed to playing at this level of basketball. They're nowhere near where they need to be yet entering the SEC season. But the way this schedule has played itself out, they've seen what it takes to win. And I think that in alone will be a great factor going into next year, especially if you can keep this group intact, because like I've said before, he doesn't have bodies anymore. He's got players, but the players are making the kinds of green mistakes that you see freshmen make.
And a programming note, Frank Martin will be with us tomorrow night on Sports Talk at 6:30 for an interview with your favorite Sports Talk show hosts. So we look forward to having the coach with us. We were at his press conference today, and there was really no major news to come out of it. He just talked about how good Virginia is, how long they are when they have certain players together on the court. It's going to be a heck of a challenge for a young South Carolina team, which is getting better. The young players are coming along. The way I look at it is, especially maybe in the SEC more than the ACC, it's so cyclical. Like right now, you're seeing Tennessee is up and Auburn is up. Of course, Kentucky and Florida, those are the mainstays typically. Everybody else is up and down, up and down. And it depends really on how long you can hold a group of guys together and develop them. That's why South Carolina, in the year that they made the run to the Final Four, they kept most of those guys together for 4 years. And they were good players. You have to have good players. But it all came together for them. The maturity, the experience, and the talent all came together. That's what you – and you hit on it as sort of a rebuilding situation in South Carolina. Maybe 2 years from now, the Gamecocks will be back in that situation. They'll be where Tennessee and Auburn are.
And of course, you had to have some glue, because everybody said that Mackey was going to transfer. He stayed around, and he had a tremendous senior year filling in when they needed it, especially on the defensive end of the floor.
Well, this happens too with those teams like South Carolina and Tennessee, Auburn, who don't get the top 10, top 15 players on a regular basis. The blue blood programs,
they can reload.
They just reload every year.
Yeah.
That's why they never drop.
And they have to, because they lose.
Exactly. But they're replacing, 5 parade All-Americans with 5 more. And, South Carolina, these teams that are not the typical year in, year out top 10 program, that's why they drop off the cliff every so often, and they have to build it back up. And you've seen it with Tennessee. They dropped off the cliff. How many years has Admiral Schofield been at Tennessee? I swear he's in his 8th year.
Long time
at Tennessee.
He was a seaman when they first joined.
Easy. Well, I mean, conversely, Clemson has tried this same formula. Just to kind of talk about them for a second, they have tried to kind of go with the mix of the development guys, the guys like Marquise Reed, Shelton Mitchell, Elijah Thomas, David Scarra, add that in as well. And also a mix of young guys, too. Second-year player in Amir Sims and the slew of freshmen they've had. The problem is none of their freshmen have had the kind of immediate impact that you would think that they would. Amir Sims has looked good at times, but they have not been whole at really any point over the last couple of weeks. You had Thomas get injured early in the season. You had Reed get injured a couple of games ago against St. Peter's, and then he couldn't play in the Mississippi State game and in the game against Radford. So they really have not been a full deck at all, and really the best laid plans for Brad Brownell's squad have really gone awry.
Yeah, we had him on last week, and he did not sound like he was real happy with the overall performance of his team.
Still isn't.
I know the injuries have had something to do with it, but again, the thing that made them successful last year, they had their offense, which with that crowd, they're going to score, and they played better defense.
Yes.
That team played defense more like Brad Brownell wants to play defense. They didn't do that when they first got there. It took them a little while to kind of buy into it. Now this year, they've
regressed,
kind of sloughed off on the defensive side a little bit. They're going to have to find that here moving forward because it's not going to be any easier with their schedule.
Here's the key, though. They look like an 8-cylinder car, and one of the cylinders not firing. I mean, they're very close. And it has to be with the guard play. That's what the key is with Clemson, is their guard play has to be consistent.
Well, just from seeing where they looked in person on Saturday against Radford, and Radford's not necessarily a team that shoots it very well, but the problem is they are a step slow on their switches, and they are being killed with ball reversal.
Right.
That's the one thing that takes a good team defensively, an average team defensively, and turns you into a great team. When you can get your coverages in line defensively, that is what turns you into a great team, and that's what makes you a winner. That's what made them a winner last year.
And that's why we see that Villanova is rebuilding, because Penn just backdoored them to death, and they never could get a grasp of how they had to play defense.
Tell you what, I bet you Brad Brownell, he looks at his conference slate, he's got to have some sleepless nights.
Oh, dude, starts out with Duke.
Open up at Duke, not just with Duke, at Duke.
Not good.
And then you go to Syracuse. Okay, Syracuse is not having a great year so far, but they're still Syracuse. Then, thank you, ACC home opener, Virginia. Okay, we play Georgia Tech. That shouldn't be too much trouble. Then you got to go to Florida State, and you got to go to NC State. So anyway, it's the SEC slate. I'm sorry, the ACC basketball slate's like playing SEC football. There is pretty much no light touch as you go through the 16 games.
And here's the other part of this too that I'm noticing now, just kind of looking and planning out a lot of things. That first weekend against Duke is also the same weekend as many Clemson fans you might have thought might have tried to scalp their way to Duke. It's the same weekend of the national championship game if the Clemson Tigers are in it.
Yeah.
And the game that you have home, your only opportunity to play North Carolina, same weekend as South Carolina Clemson baseball. And that Sunday game is in Columbia.
Now Clemson plays at Duke, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's where you can get up to court in about 3 seconds, and it looks like 10.
All right, so going to March 2nd, Tigers host North Carolina, and that Saturday game is where?
Greenville.
Yeah, that's the game in Greenville. Right.
But I'm saying it reverses this year because last year the series started in Columbia, went up towards.
That's right. It finished in Clemson.
Oh yeah,
finished in Clemson. So I'm saying so that Sunday game for the baseball being Columbia.
Here. Yeah.
I tell you who looked good in that first half because he had to play. Seventh Wood sighting. He played well against Gonzaga.
And he looked good against Wofford, too.
Yeah. All right. When we come back from the break, we're going to continue with your phone calls if you'd like to join us, 800-956-7266. And also, we're going to hear from the two head coaches from the Touchstone Energy Bowl. We'll also hear from Jackie Hayes, the Shrine Bowl head coach, Mr. Football in South Carolina for this year, Zach Pickens, as well as his coach, Jeff Herron. So we got all that coming your way here on Sports Talk, and a little bit of Frank Martin from his presser today. We'll have more from him tomorrow night. So we got a bunch of good stuff to come your way. If you'd like to join in, we have time for some calls as well. We'll mix those in. 800-956-7266 is our number here on a Monday night.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Once again at Sports Talk, it was our pleasure, not only Sports Talk and South Carolina Radio Network, to once again air the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl, a good time had by all in Conway this past weekend, Corn, and defensive-minded game from the South and North.
It was indeed, and again, thanks to the folks at Coastal Carolina, Matt Hogue, the AD, and everybody involved there. They made everything very comfortable. The weather was threatening to start the day. The temperature was terrific for December, but the threat of rain, boy, it rained so much and so hard there throughout the week, especially towards the latter part. But about midway through the fourth quarter, the clouds moved out and beautiful bright sunshine came down, and we had an exciting finish to the game, some big plays. Coach Don Frost, who's been a gunslinger his entire coaching career, got a chance to win the ball game, get his team down in field goal position. He's got a kicker, Patrick Nations, who has a big leg. He opted to go with a trick play where they sent the quarterback with the ball in one direction. The receiver came around. He flipped it to him, one of those little reverse receiver passes, and he threw an interception. It was well underthrown. It was not the pass was not well executed. I mean, the play call could be questioned because why you take the ball out of the hands of your quarterback in that situation. They were trying to catch the South off guard. It did not happen, but it was a heck of a ball game nonetheless. And the South comes away with the win, breaking a 3-game losing streak in the series. Coach Scott Early from Westside, who was our sideline announcer, did a fabulous job for us. He had a chance to catch up with Barnwell coach Dwayne Garrick, who was the head coach for the South.
Coach Garrett, unbelievably competitive game, 13-10, low scoring. The defense has all these limitations. Supposed to be offensive game. Didn't look good at halftime. I'm going to let you do the rest.
Hey, I mean, we came out, we got that big score on the pick 6, and momentum started to swing a little bit, and then we put together a couple drives offensively. Tig had a couple really big runs there for us. JB hit the seam route a couple times to extend the change for us, and hey, we went up and got that ball on defense in the corner. That ball we picked up right here weren't really bad balls offensively. We just made really good plays on them defensively, and hey, it turned out for us to be a defensive football game. But sometimes it's like that. You got great players on the field. Sometimes it works out that way.
Well, you broke up a 3-year run. The North dominating this game, for the lack of a better term. How did you enjoy your week down here? I know culminating with a win, but kind of take me through the week.
I'll tell you what, as slow as I thought it might be, the week really went by fast. We had a great group of guys. It makes it simple, makes it easy. You guys did a great job of putting the game on and doing the things we had to do as far as getting the place to eat. And for me, it was a blast. I mean, and it went by pretty fast. And I think we did a pretty good job of getting our guys together to understand what we wanted to accomplish on both sides of the ball, terminology-wise, all those kind of things. And hey, just get them out there and let them play. That's what they did.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Coach Early losing the voice there for a little bit.
So get him some of the same stuff that Mick Mixon needs, the Jack Daniels and honey.
Yeah, that would work for anybody.
And your chili.
Now to the other side with Coach Don Frost. Got him as well after the ball game. Here is Coach Early and Coach Frost.
Coach Frost, all-star game, tough fought battle. Both teams had numerous chances. Give us your thoughts on today's game.
Well, I felt like, we had our chances, and we didn't capitalize on our chances. I thought it was a great game on both sides. Both teams played very hard, and, it was just 13-10. It's a tough way to lose, but somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose.
Tell us a little bit about your week this week and just the whole experience of being the head coach in a game like this.
It has been phenomenal. I mean, really phenomenal. These kids have been great. The people that run this thing have been great. Yourself, Keith Richardson, Touchstone Cooperative. I mean, just everybody. This is a special game, and I hope it continues for a long time to come, because this one, the kids actually have fun. They're able to concentrate on football, and it's just a phenomenal way for them to finish up their high school career.
Congratulations, Coach. Good luck in the future.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Don Frost, there's going to be some more good news coming about the Touchstone Energy Bowl in the near future. not in a position to say anything right now because things are going on.
Nice tease there.
Well, I mean, there's just things that are going on. Things are happening.
Combo game. Possible?
Well, that's no secret that's being talked about with the Shrine Bowl. I'm just talking about other entities becoming financially involved with the game and further enhancing that experience. In between,
saying it's about money.
Everything's about money. Yeah, everything's about money. Yeah. But the experience for the kids, and the Shrine Bowl is fantastic. The Shrine Bowl, of course, has a great purpose for the Shriners symbolically. It's the end of the year of fundraising by the Shriners nationwide for the Shriners hospitals. And the game is kind of used symbolically as the culmination of that. And that's why they present the check during halftime of the Shrine Bowl. And it's like $1 million something every year, some huge figure. And the Shriners across the country are to be commended for that because that's unbelievably great philanthropic work.
And they do the same thing with the collegiate East-West Shrine game as well, which I've been involved with previously.
Sure. And then this game, of course, raises money for scholarships for the family members of coaches. And the Thursday is a big deal. And this is something that's catching the eyes of a lot of people, what they do on Thursday by bringing in children to meet with the players. And watching that interaction this year was just tremendous. The players themselves seem to have a better time. I know the children have a great time, but the players have a great time. They love, of course, spending somebody else's money. But I had one player tell me, they give them $100 gift card. Sometimes they go a little over that. And it's been known, and it happened again this year, the players will dig into their own pockets for $5 or $6 if they need it to go ahead and complete a transaction. Yeah, it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And it just speaks volumes about what high school football in our state can mean and does mean, and the type of young men, for the most part, who are developed on the football fields in the state of South Carolina.
What about the players who perform? Don't some of these guys get another look by maybe some colleges that?
Well, the only colleges that can come out to practice are D2 and below. No FBS
and
programs.
Some of those kids have
for some reason. I know the reason why. A few years ago, the NCAA imposed a rule on the FBS teams that they could not scout these games because college basketball coaches had been out scouting games, and they put an end to that. And I think that also led them to do the same thing with college football coaches. I can remember, not too many years ago, you'd stand on the sideline of a Touchstone Energy Bowl practice or a Shrine Bowl practice, and it would just be lined with head coaches.
Caps.
Head coaches. The funniest story of all time was the coach who was at the Shrine Bowl, and I'm trying to remember who it was. Might have been Miles Aldridge or somebody. One day he was coaching for Clemson. The next day he was coaching for South Carolina. He changed shirts. Yeah. He showed up one day, was coaching for one team. He showed up the next day, was coaching for another team. He just had a different jacket on. Anyway, they're great events. The talk is, of course, the Shrine Bowl and the Touchstone Energy Bowl coming together as one weekend in Myrtle Beach. There's a lot of obstacles that have to be overcome to make that happen, because you got two different entities and you got powerful people.
It'll be a 2-week-long event too with that.
No, they'd be the same weekend.
The same weekend?
Yeah, they would practice the same time and be on the
one
same
would
weekend.
Play on Friday and one would play on Saturday.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, again, you got people who are kind of not stuck in their ways, but it's been done one way for so long, they might not want to step aside and let things change. But we shall see what happens. I just plan for us to be there no matter what happens moving forward with those events. When we come back, we'll hear from Jackie Hayes, the coach of the Sandlappers this year, plus Jeff Herron, the coach of Mr. Football in South Carolina, and a few comments from Mr. Football himself, Zach Pickens.
It's a lot.
We have a lot.
It's a lot.
We have a lot to get to.
We have like a lot of I see 10 things that I want to talk about in the next half hour.
Okay. We got time to get to all that.
It's a lot.
Yeah, because we've dumped Mick tonight.
No Mick.
He's got some work to do.
Though
tonight.
I thought we would give him a call. What time do they kick off?
Kick off at 8:30.
Don't you think he could join us at 7:50?
No.
Probably on the air. Probably on the air right as we speak.
Yeah.
He's probably doing the starting lineups right now.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back to give you more here on Sports Talk. The Shrine Bowl side of things coming up. Don't go away.
Our poll question is online at SportsTalkSC.com, and we've got a barn burner of a question, Corn. It deals with, of course, the college football playoff and the consternation that has developed from within. The question basically boils down to whether you like the format now, whether you want to change, whether you want to go back. The question answers are perfect, leave it alone. Number 2, needs to be expanded. Number 3, I like the BCS. Number 4, I prefer the old bowl system. Plenty of reaction.
2% voted for the old bowl system.
They
must be 70 years old and older.
4% like the BCS. 36% said perfect, leave it alone. That's my answer. And 58% of those who have surveyed, and we'll keep this up a couple of days, 58% say it needs to be expanded. Dabo Sweeney, who spoke on Friday, by the way, can't remember if we played this or not. We did, actually. He said he actually likes the way 4 is right now. Others have put in their opinion. They say
how many times has Dabo been in it?
Each of the last 4.
Okay, that's why he likes it.
His thing is why if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
That's probably his thought.
Very much so.
All right, a little bit more from the weekend. Now to the Shrine Bowl, and of course the Panthers and the Saints coming up. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit as well, previewing that what's a huge game for the Panthers as they try to make it into the playoffs, trying to break a losing streak. But the Shrine Bowl ended up in a tie, first time in a long, long time that game ended up in a tie. 10-10, the final at Gibbs Stadium over at Wofford College. Here is Coach Jackie Hayes, head coach at Dillon High School, head coach of the Shrine Bowl team, the South Carolina team. Justin Mathis from our Fox affiliate, Fox Sports Radio affiliate in Spartanburg, WSPG, was our man on the scene to talk with the coach afterwards.
Crazy ball game. You end up finishing with a 10-all tie. Overall, what were your thoughts on how today's game unfolded?
Well, we made some mistakes. What an effort by our players. Thought we had a good scheme, both defensively and offensively. They outweighed us about 50 or 60 pounds a man. Knew we were going to have trouble, running the ball and blocking them up front. I thought we played well up there. We didn't execute a couple times. If we'd had a little bit more execution, we'd probably had 14 more points. But, I'm proud of the guys. They gave us everything they had, and that's all you can ask for.
Defensively, when you got guys like 34 and 90, you can just kind of turn loose. That's a big deal, too.
No question about both of those kids had great games. Pickens had a great game, and, I'm proud of my player, too, Shamar McCollum. 3 or 4 sacks, a block punt, about 5 or 6 tackles. He had great effort out there, but, that's the way he played the whole time he played for us at Dillon.
And overall, how would you describe this entire week?
Well, frustrating at some point when you can only practice outside 3 times and can't control the weather, but, a remarkable experience when you get to meet all these different kids from all these different schools and what kind of things that they're thinking about. And, you couldn't ask for a better group of guys than we had. We had 0 problems all week. That was important. Everybody did what they're supposed to do, and that made it a whole lot more enjoyable.
And the question is that Jackie Hayes' last game as a head football coach? Been some talk about him maybe being ready to retire, but don't know yet. We shall see. He'll have another good team at Dillon next year, no doubt about it. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the one of the stars for the Sandlappers and also the man named Mr. Football in South Carolina, Zach Pickens from T.L. Hanna. Justin caught up with him after the game.
Overall, what would you say your take on the game was today?
It was all right. I wish I would have did a little more sacking the quarterback, but you hit some, you miss some, then he gets right there, and then you run away. So can't beat myself up too much.
I mean, you still got to do some of what you did a lot this year with T.L. Hanna. You got to see some action on offense, too. What was that like from that perspective?
Actually, that was different because I never received it in the Wildcat. So I actually like it in the Wildcat. I ain't got to take a handoff and just get it and go.
And what was your perspective on the entire week from start to finish?
It was a little slow at first because you come in, you don't know what you're really doing, if you're starting, if you're not starting. Then you get new plays. So it just all came in, but it came quickly to our D-line, so it was easy for us.
So now you get to go play at the next level at the University of South Carolina. What are some things you're looking forward to there when you get there?
Try to get some sacks and tackles. That's it.
Thank you, Zach, for your time.
Thank you.
So I'm sitting here listening to this and looking at his stats from the Shrine Bowl and watching a little bit of the highlights too. I know that T-Rob is going to be trying to keep him strangled on that one side of the field, but you have to think there's going to be a little tug of war there with B-Mac wanting to use him on 3rd and short. You have to think.
Go Christian Wilkins with him.
Why not?
Yeah.
You have a program that has struggled over the last 2 years on 3rd down, and you need a yard or two. You can't sit there and tell me you don't want that guy coming through the line.
No, I was just knocking because, knock on wood, the only reason you wouldn't use him is because you're thinking, man, we used to have guys walking on the field last year and they get hurt.
Well, I'm going to say, think about this now. Even with Wilkins,
no, you
and
can't,
you throw him back there.
Live life like that.
Yeah, but you don't. You got guys back there who just aren't used to doing it, and they leave themselves exposed to some degree.
But he's used to doing it.
They don't know how to protect themselves like a normal running back. Those guys know how to protect themselves to some degree.
But he does.
Any athlete playing football can have a cleat stick in the ground and tear a knee up and that sort of thing. But But I'm not disagreeing with you. The short yardage situations for sure. Let's get a little bit more on the background of Zach Pickens. His coach, Jeff Herron, was at the Touchstone Energy Bowl representing along with his brother. So when the announcement was made, he was there. They did it at halftime of the game. And after a video presentation, Bob Pauling with the Touchstone Electric Cooperatives made the announcement of Mr. Football for 2018. And it was Zach Pickens. And then our Scott Early caught up with his coach, Jeff Herron.
Coach, I know you've won 5 state championships and a lot of games in 2 states now. What put together 2 of the most last impressive seasons anybody's ever seen. But what does it mean to you, your community, and the school to have the equivalent of the Heisman Trophy come to T.O. Hanna for the best football player in the state of South Carolina?
Well, it's quite an honor, and I've said all year long, Zach's such a great kid. He's deserving of this. He's certainly the best player I've ever coached, and he's right up there. He's an even better kid. So, we're thrilled. We're honored that he would receive such a prestigious award, and literally probably the biggest award any one of my kids have ever won.
Well, it's, being me and you are in the same town, I've obviously coached against him for 4 years, and the most amazing thing about Zach is he's so selfless. He plays on every special team. He runs the ball. He blocks. He plays defensive end. This award is really for the best well-rounded student athlete football player in the state of South Carolina. And I know how Zach's well-deserving and what a great career and some other things you maybe could tell us about Zach.
Well, he volunteers for the Hemophilia Society. I mean, stuff like that. He goes and reads to elementary kids. He went to a birthday party for a 8th grade kid last year that asked him to. I mean, he's just an unbelievably good kid with a great heart on him. And, every day you see him, he's got a smile on his face. He's glad to see you. And all the attention, all the accolades that he's received, he didn't have to be like that. And, most of them aren't. And to see him be the kind of kid he is, it's amazing.
So you've been the luckiest coach in the state the last 2 years. So I now unless Will Muschamp's going to be the luckiest college coach in college football for the next 4.
Well, I wish I could keep him again, but, yeah, I think Will's going to enjoy having him for sure.
Coach, congratulations to you, to Zach, his family, T.O. Hanna High School, Anderson 5 School District, and congratulations on a great year, and congratulations on Hanna's first ever Mr. Football.
Well, thank you very much.
There's no offense to, Wyatt Tunnel or any of the other guys who were candidates, but, I mean, this is probably this is the choice.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. And, Coach Early, who is the rival coach in Anderson to T.L. Hanna at West Side, he's probably thinking, I'm glad this guy is gone. I don't have to face him anymore. But Coach Herron has come into T.L. Hanna and just done a fantastic job. But like any high school coach will tell you at a public school, it all depends on who walks through that door because you can't technically recruit. And, yeah, you can clear your voice there. But, yeah, it happens some, but not enough to where you can just recruit a whole bunch of guys to come in. If you're a public school, it depends on who moves into your district or who transfers in or whatever the case may be.
I played in the Catholic League in Washington, D.C.
Here you go.
Far be it for me to tell you they didn't recruit. They recruited.
But that was a private league, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying they had rules against that stuff too, though.
When people ask what your address is, here's the one you tell them.
So, I mean, he's kind of hoping that now that this guy's gone and some others, Alex Meredith will be gone, that kind of levels the playing field there in Anderson. He had it his way for a while. It's been Jeff Herron's way for a little while now. We'll see what happens. But congratulations to all. Back in a moment.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
So I always like to reward good journalism, Corn, and the Orlando Sentinel had a Freedom of Information Act request. Of course, our good friend Mike Bianchi, who does a lot of great work down there in the Sunshine State, basically got any emails that went back and forth between UCF Athletic Director Danny White and Florida Gator Athletic Director Scott Strickland. This is, of course, in response to the backlash that UCF seems to think that they have with the response coming out from Dan Mullen saying, oh, yeah, we'll play UCF if they want to do a 2-for-1. 2 in Gainesville, 1 in Orlando, which I think is fair. I think there's nothing wrong with that offer. In fact, UCF should be fortunate that Florida is even giving them the time of day, because why in the world would Florida want to put forth a game to UCF that they could possibly lose inside their own state to an in-state school in a non-Power 5 league? That doesn't make any freaking sense to play them at all, and they're going to give them a 2-for-1. I would take that if I'm UCF, and I would run with it.
It's the old Dean Smith approach in the state of North Carolina. I think pros alluded to that before, where Dean would not play other teams in the state, was not going to give them the opportunity to beat his team, and definitely wouldn't go on the road to play them. If you're Florida, I mean, what do you have to gain?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
So, and you know as well as I do, in college football, it's all about me.
Right.
It's not about you, and I'm not here to help you uplift your program by giving you any kind of a break, especially, I mean, let's face it, UCF is a darn good football team and is capable of beating Florida on a given day.
Central Florida needs to talk and bring in.
They like to be called UCF.
And bring in Bobby Bowden and talk to them about, look, when I was at Florida State, this was a dump. I took on all comers. Nebraska wanted me to play 4-for-1. I go to Nebraska 4 times.
And here's the other part of this too. And the UCF's identity crisis continues to baffle me, because they start to say things like the Power 6 or we're not a typical Group of 5 school. Listen, your program has had 7 All-Americans. 7. In its history.
Yeah, but
and one of them was Dante Culpepper.
They're a relatively young program now.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Credit. They're relatively young.
But I'm saying, like, you are not Florida. You are not even close to Florida.
No,
I know that Florida is, necessarily kind of rebuilding, and they're in the top 10 right now, and they got themselves back with a group of the New Year's Six Bowl. But I'm sorry, Florida's not going to give you any juice, like Pro likes to say. You need to go earn it.
Yeah, they if they want to get this done, they're going to have to be the one giving.
Right.
Florida's not going to do it, and they shouldn't. I mean, you're still the little kid on the block. You might not see yourself that way. You might be in a fantasy world thinking you won a national championship last year and you're going to go back-to-back this year in your own world, and that's fine. You can spend the money on your rings, and you can hang a banner, though I'm sure the NCAA frowns upon that.
Yeah.
And you can do all you want to. Clemson did it back in the day when they were on probation and still won an ACC title, but the ACC didn't recognize it. But if I remember correctly, I think Clemson did with some rings for their team, but it doesn't count in the legitimate scheme of things. They should, if it's going to be a 2-for-1 deal, I mean, you're going to have to play 2 in Gainesville and 1 in your place.
Here's the quote from one of the emails obtained by the Orlando Sentinel. Requiring non-autonomy 5 schools to have to settle for inequitable scheduling seems like an unfair business practice and something we should all address at a high level. I add parenthetically, it's something that's always gone on and really never is going to change. He said, if this type of scheduling is what is required for teams like UCF to make the Final Four of the college football playoff, we must consider expansion of the playoff to include non-autonomy 5 schools so we avoid the system operating like a monopoly. I'm open to playing anyone in the country, but shouldn't have to put my team at a severe disadvantage by being forced to play 2-for-1s or guarantee games. But you have schools that don't even compare inside your conference schedule to what Florida has to do on a daily basis. That's why it's not fair, because you don't play in a conference. And guess what? If UCF felt that strongly about their scheduling practices or their desire to compete at a higher level, guess what they would have done, Corn? Join a conference that's better than the American Athletic Conference.
Well, then again, those conferences not going to let them in because they see Central Florida has about 45,000 students. It's a commuter school, of course, but it's a huge school. But if I'm not,
you don't think the Big 12 would take UCF?
If I'm not mistaken, Spurrier, didn't he take a 2-for-1 deal have Central Florida come up twice, and then they went down there. I think
it was a spread out deal over 6 years. They played him, I think, 3 times in a span of 6 years, twice here and once there.
Okay. We talked about Donnell Stanley earlier, and I guess it must have been today was graduation day.
Yes,
at USC, or no, they were recognizing the graduating players, right?
Yes,
we got their rings.
So I guess there was a media available.
No, it was just more like pictures.
No, because he talked to Colin Taylor from Gamecock Central.
Yeah,
at least apparently he's got quotes from him. And the reason I bring this up is
very
the question
informative.
about about his future plans, and he said that he's taking it slow, focusing on the season. And Stanley said, when asked about will a decision come quickly after the bowl game, he said, I don't think so. I'm going to talk to coach, see where I stand for the NFL. That's why it's been off my mind and focusing on the game. And he said, as far as the game and bowl practice, he said, and also his degree, he said it's a big deal getting his degree. That's why you come to school. And there you go. So it is something that he's going to have to discuss with Muschamp and his family and decide exactly what it is he wants to do. Tell you, Donnell is a heck of a guy. He's from my neck of the woods, went to my old high school. So I've really enjoyed following his development from his high school days through the Shrine Bowl to South Carolina. Remember, and to shame, he was forced. Well, maybe he earned his way, but they were so thin and poor on the offensive line when he got there. He started from day one. Remember that? At right tackle. And then like 3 or 4 snaps into his first game against Vanderbilt, he hurts his leg, and loses the entire season, has to have surgery, and had to come back from that. They've moved him around on the offensive line. I think he's found himself a home at center.
Yeah.
Then again, if he does come back, they may move him back to guard,
Hank Manos,
and make room for Hank Manos at center.
I just, like I said before, you're asking a guy to stay a 6th year in college.
It's rare.
That's not something a lot of guys want to do, especially if they think they have pro aspirations. And again, I don't know how much more you can gain and how much more that makes you marketable, because again, NFL teams will look at you and they'll say, oh, well, you're another year older. I don't know if I want to necessarily take a chance on you because of that. It's a hard thing. It's a hard sell. And he's talked about it, a lot of stuff post-graduate that he wants to do. Again, I find it hard to believe, just without knowing personally from him what he wants to do. I find it hard to believe that he'd want to come back for another year.
Well, I would think probably what you're looking here is you have to make your decision on what you want to do as far as aiming for that second contract. Because if he shows his longevity, he's already shown one of the key points of playing center anywhere now is how many bad you can count on one hand how many bad snaps that South Carolina had from the line of scrimmage with him playing his first year at center.
Right.
A lot of guys play that first year at center. You're going to see bad snaps all over the place. He didn't have any of that. And he's played at guard. He's played in emergency situations. He's played at tackle. This guy just has to make this, and he's got his degree. So it may just come down to him thinking, look, if I can get into a camp and make a team, I'll deal with that next.
We got
contract.
some big breaking news here.
What happened?
Justin Fields is transferring from Georgia.
No.
Yeah. Are you saying that sarcastically?
No, I'm being.
This is
serious.
in USA Today. Dan Wolken.
Get
at
out.
7:44. Highly
Central
touted
Florida.
quarterback Justin Fields has notified Georgia he intends to transfer. A person with knowledge told USA Today. The person spoke on the condition of anonymity because he'd be shot. Fields, number 2 overall recruit in the country just a year ago.
That's big.
Arrived at Georgia. Immediate questions about how he'd fit in. As it turns out, Georgia never found a consistent role for him.
Wow.
Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah.
Also had the situation involving the baseball player that hurled the bigoted comments at him. Probably that didn't
so
go
he
over well.
will and he'll have to sit out because he's not a grad transfer.
That's true.
Unless he can find some special circumstances to work in his favor.
He becomes the biggest free agent on the transfer market, if you will.
Now, a reminder, there's not a whole lot out there to check on, but we'll continue to check on recruiting stuff. You check it out on our website as well, Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Muschamp tomorrow, Clemson players tomorrow.
Sure.
And a bunch more. Thank you for being with us. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.